Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Murray, and I'm delighted to serve under your chairmanship, and I'm very grateful to the Backbench Business Committee for giving me the opportunity to introduce our latest report from the Environmental Audit Committee, which, as you say, is on the topic of water quality in rivers. This is an issue of particular interest to me, as I had a private member's bill in the last session of Parliament which wasn't able to progress, and our committee have worked very hard over a year in taking evidence, including from the Minister, and I'm delighted to see the Minister in her place, who has, as the Environment Minister, taken a particular interest in championing this issue through government and introducing measures into the Environment Act, which became law 2 months ago, which will, in some respect, preempt some of the measures that we're recommending here. So we are very grateful to her for her interest in this subject. I'd also like to take the opportunity, this is the first time we've had to do so, to welcome our latest recruit to the committee, the member for Walsall North, South, and look forward to her contributions to our committee in due course. So, just by way of introduction, we have been concerned about water quality because of the extraordinary evidence that we've received from campaign groups up and down the country, recognising that we are presiding over a cocktail of contamination in our rivers, which, to my mind, stems from over 60 years of underinvestment in the drainage networks and sewers and treatment plants, mostly, frankly, because they're underground, out of sight, and not at the top of public consciousness, other than when there is a disgusting sewage spill, an incident which captures the public attention. But for 60 years, we have been developing above ground housing, industry, agricultural buildings, more and more, without putting corresponding investment underground to be able to deal with the effluent that a growing population of both humans and animals creates. And that's something which we absolutely have to put right. At present, only 14 of English rivers are in good ecological health, and not a single one gets a clean bill of health for chemical contamination. And getting a sort of full overview through our report of the health of our rivers and the pollution affecting them has been hampered, frankly, by outdated, underfunded and inadequate monitoring regimes. And that is why it's taken a report like this to pull all this data together. Water companies appear to be dumping untreated or partially treated sewage in rivers on a routine basis, often breaching the terms of the permits that on paper only allow them to do this in exceptional circumstances. And that was one of the most significant findings. We think part of the reason for this is because they've been allowed to self-monitor for the last 12 years or so. And one of the innovations in the Environment Act, which the Minister has brought in, is precisely to increase the amount of monitoring using latest technology, so that we will be able to understand, which we haven't been able to do up till now, other than through individual lab testing, in real time, the impact of discharging sewage into our river systems. There will be monitors placed upstream and downstream of the outfalls, and that, I think, will have a transformative effect in, not least, allowing the public to know whether there's been a sewage discharge before they intend to visit a river. But it's not all about sewage. There are other not all about the problems of the water companies. They have to deal with an increasing volume of plastic material, which is other non-biodegradable material, being flushed down our toilets, and this includes wet wipes. And I'm supporting the move from my colleague, our colleague Alberto Costa, to introduce a private member's bill to ban plastic from wet wipes. They act as a dam within the sewage system, and a combination of excessive amounts of non-biodegradable material gets caught up in meshes, gets added to by fats, oils and greases coming out of food service establishments, which create fatbergs. Some we had evidence as big as blue whales, which need to be removed from the sewers. Water companies are spending £100 million a year of their scarce resource on removing this material. There are something like 7 million wet wipes a day going into our sewers. So, this is something that we as individuals can do something about to try and reduce that problem. But as I said, it's not all about the water companies. It is also, we found, a problem from diffuse pollution from agriculture. And this, in fact, accounts for slightly more of the causes of pollution than sewage from water treatment plants. Intensive livestock and poultry farming is putting significant pressure on particular catchments. I think there are 14 across England at the moment where development is on hold because of the nutrient load already existing in our river systems. One of the worst of these is in the River Wye catchment, where it appears that there's been particular pressure from poultry farming building up over a number of years. So we have called for each catchment to have a nutrient budget calculated, and this then would need to be reviewed using the Environment Agency's good resources to try to help establish a framework to allow development to take place without adding to the nutrient load in the receiving waters. We were very alarmed, just going back to the water companies for a moment, by the degree of permit breaches which we've brought to our attention, not so much by the Environment Agency or the water companies themselves, but by citizen scientists doing their own investigation under freedom of information requests. And we think it's really important that the Environment Agency and other regulators get a proper picture of the true number of sewer overflow discharges, because we fear they may be higher than is currently permitted. And we've made a number of suggestions about how the government should, in considering how to allocate resource from the spending review, that DEFRA should consider giving additional resource to the Environment Agency so that they can adequately undertake their enforcement, which all too often has been slow, to put it mildly. We have seen an increase in fines imposed as a result of prosecutions in the last few years, 2 very significant fines, but by and large, fines for enforcement of clear breaches of illegal discharge above permit levels have been a routine order of doing business, and we don't think that that is appropriate. So we think greater enforcement needs to be undertaken by the Environment Network. We've also called on Ofwat to prioritise the long-term investment in wastewater assets as a key outcome of its next pricing review period. And as the Minister is here, and as I know will be finalising the strategic pricing statement guidance to Ofwat in coming weeks, we would strongly encourage the Minister to consider giving greater priority to capital investment by water companies in the next pricing review to allow them to invest more in improving the treatment capacity that's available across the network. We have a large number of recommendations. I don't have enough time to go into them all, Mrs. Murray, but I would just conclude by saying one of our recommendations, which I think will have some resonance in this COVID environment where many people have been using rivers for recreation, that we think each water company should seek to get bathing water quality status at least in one river stretch or water body within their area before 2025, and then routinely seek to do so in subsequent pricing periods. I look forward to responding to any comments that members might have on the report. Thank you.